I really want to talk about this book that I just finished recently. This is We Are the Dead, book 1 in the Lasr War trilogy by Mike Shackle. If you like refreshing, unique, epic, grimdark, violent, brutal fantasy, this is it. What's good, BookTube? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Theo, Rekindled Reader, and again, today I just wanted to do a quick review. I finished this book a couple days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. I definitely have book 2 and book 3 on deck, and I cannot wait to start these, but I felt compelled either way to talk about book 1 because it left me really impressed. So let's go ahead and talk about this one today. This book opens with an enemy attack, a violent, brutal invasion. This overwhelming force makes it behind enemy lines. The country that gets invaded has special warriors called the Shulka, and these people are trained. They're very samurai, Spartan inspired, more Asian, I would say. And they're trained to protect people, fight off enemies like this. And they have been fighting off these enemy invaders for years and years and years, and they consider them to be barbarians. But one day they make it behind enemy lines, and it gets brutal real quick. It's all done under the guise of a holy war. The invading force believes in this god, and the people that they invade, this country that you're sort of in, believe in these other gods. And it's a huge conflict that has been brewing for years and years and years. It reached this boiling point, and all of a sudden, these people in this country wake up to find the enemy is invading, and somehow, through magic that you learn about a little bit throughout the story, they are occupying, they are destroying everything, they are invading, they are killing, pillaging, they're destroying buildings. They have absolutely taken over. Their warriors now are, stationed everywhere. They're taking over government buildings. Their flags are flying. It is eerily reminiscent, trigger warnings here, of like other notable occupations. Very much it has that feel to it. In this book, we follow multiple points of view of characters that I think are quite compelling. Tinstra is definitely a standout. She's a main character. She's the one you meet in the first few pages in quite a dark moment, quite a dark scene. She is the daughter of quite an acclaimed, famous warrior Shulka and leader, and her whole family is of an elite class within that warrior clan. She is cut from a different cloth. She is absolutely reluctant. She's a coward. She's self-proclaimed scaredy cat, basically. She doesn't want anything to do with the conflict. She does not want to be pushed to the forefront of this conflict, which basically she has been pushed to the forefront of it through events that happen, and she really doesn't want any part of it. And to watch her grow from the beginning to the end of the book is quite satisfying. I cannot wait to read more about her in books 2 and 3. A couple other characters. Dren was a standout, a rebel kid with a clan kind of around him, that he's a ragtag group of kids that he's put together who are resisting and fighting back and dealing devastating blows to the enemy force as much as they're able to after their families and homes and things have been completely obliterated, basically, and life as they know it in their home city has been disrupted. So he is fighting back, and he is a take no shit rebel cutthroat kid who's really fun to follow. And Jax is another standout. Jax is a grizzled old warrior who survives the initial attack along with his son, who becomes disabled in the attack. And he is so fun to read. His chapters evoked the most emotion out of me. There were really hard pieces to read, actually, that involved Jax and his son. From about halfway to the end of the book, every time Jax was on paper, I was holding my breath because, yeah, he goes through some stuff. His chapters are what caused me to consider this book one of the darker books that I've personally ever read. Very tough to read, brilliant character arcs in this, and like I said, a few standout characters. There's also magic in this book, and in order to keep this spoiler free, I won't talk too much about who can or can't harness magic, where it came from, to what extent people have abilities or not, or what the status of magic is in this world, because it plays a very integral part in the story and the plot. But there are crazy, creatures in this. There are flying demons and monster hunter dogs that are chasing down enemies and stuff. There are some really cool characters and creatures in this book. There is magic. There are battle scenes. One thing I will say is Mike Shackle has an incredible ability to write a battle sequence. There is a lot of intimate fighting. There's a lot of magic usage, but also hand-to-hand combat. And he just is able to bounce around and put you in that skirmish, in that conflict seamlessly, and it actually works really, really well. And I really enjoyed the action and the battle scenes, and it feels like you're there. You can see the blood. You can hear the swords scraping against each other. You can smell all the stuff that happens in war. His ability to create imagery and then, of course, atmosphere through this whole story is really impressive, and I really enjoyed it. The writing is also really good. The prose does an excellent job, in my opinion, of just conveying, without being distracting, conveying the grim, hopeless outlook and atmosphere that this story is told in. And the dialogue is excellent. The dialogue is hilarious at times, but it's dark and it's realistic, and people are having meaningful, realistic interactions. And like I said, his descriptions, his imagery, the atmosphere he's able to conjure is really quite impressive. The way the characters are written and their storylines intertwine and are woven together throughout from the beginning of the book to the end is really satisfying when you work towards this big climax and all the groups help each other and are basically together for that moment is really gratifying. And it becomes sort of a quest fantasy. And I won't say one way or another what happens, but definitely people are not spared. Heroes don't always make it. Everyone is fair game in this book, and I respect and applaud that because it leads, it's realistic and it feeds into the grim, hopeless sort of outlook that is in this world, and people that are fighting for their lives, their livelihoods, their way of being and living, and trying to get their sense of normalcy back after this enemy invasion. They're trying to really reclaim their home, their identities, and their culture. And so I applaud it. It was done very well. And like I said, it becomes a bit of a quest fantasy. And at the end of the book, you definitely are left wanting to pick up book number 2. It can sort of function as a standalone, but not really. You really do want to learn more about the lore, the background, the rich culture and everything that surrounds this place, the magic system. We need more explanations for that. I need to know what happens with certain characters. There's a mother with a newborn, kind of like an 18-month-old baby in this book that just gets propelled to the very front of this conflict as well. And she becomes a total badass. I need to know what happens with Yaz. And I believe Mike Shackle just put out a short story or novella or something about this character that's on his website. So I'm going to need to read this trilogy and circle back and find out what happens with Yaz. But I had an absolute blast with this book, and I just wanted to share that, if you're looking for something really refreshing, violent, dark, epic fantasy that doesn't hold your hand, but also gives you just enough to appreciate the scope of the lore, the magic system, the characters, more of their background, how they develop over time. I think it just does everything really, really well. And I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 star. And on any given day, like I said, I had an absolute blast with it. On any given day, it could have been a 4, could have been a 5. I settled on a 4. There were a couple things. One, I will say, Tinstra, for all intents and purposes, she is the main character. And I found her to be a little bit frustrating at times, a little bit annoying. It's drilled into you that she is a coward. She's not cut out for this. She wants no part in this. She's always having this internal monologue of, I don't want to do this. I don't want anything to do with it. I should just run. I can get away from all this if I just ran away. I'm not like this. I'm a coward. And it gets a little bit old because she's being continuously pushed into these events, and she's taking ownership and accountability and making these tough decisions. And she does grow over time, but I feel like we could have done a little bit more showing and less telling. We know she's a coward. We know she doesn't want to be there, and we didn't have to necessarily dwell so much on that. But I will say the way that that's done throughout the book, and I bet you through the rest of the trilogy, but definitely by the end of the first book, her arc becomes quite satisfying, and it's wonderful to see her grow into her own and know where she came from and have an idea of where she might be going. So that was actually pros and cons, right? Like, it was a little bit grating to read at first, but I can see why it was done. And by the end, I was very much rooting for Tinstra, and she became a favorite. The other thing I'll say is definitely, the villains are this enemy invading force, this group of warriors that are now occupying this country. But there are a couple main villains in particular. There's a brother and sister that have these special powers granted to them by who they perceive to be their god. And they both have different powers that work well off of each other. The brother he's a standout character for sure because he likes to torture people. with knives. If you are a fan of Joe Abercrombie, you know where I'm going with this. It's done so well, and it was very difficult to read at times, but like it doesn't fade to black, and all of that stuff was great. I just found his character and his sister, these two main villains, to be a little bit flat. While they were given some depth and some complexity, I just felt there could have been a little more nuance, a little more background, a little bit more something to make them a little bit more compelling. And so for those reasons, I just found the main villains to be a little bit lacking, but I bet there's going to be more baddies in the rest of the trilogy to overcome and enjoy. So, overall, I had a blast with it. I thought this was a very impressive book, a very impressive first book in a trilogy. I can't wait to read the rest of the books and get the whole story. I will say, if you like Joe Abercrombie, if you're a fan of grimdark, violent, dark, gruesome fantasy, I can't believe it. This is weird. It's weird to say. If you love all those things, go ahead and read this book. Do yourself a favor. Mike Shackle did something quite special here, and it leaves a lot. This is the best kind of book one because it sets things up. It gets you invested in the world and the culture and the lore and the characters. And then certain things happen. Some characters make it, some characters don't. But it really does open up a huge possibility of where the story can go. And it really leaves a lot of room to answer more questions, to, pose more questions, and to develop the rest of the story in a pretty fun way. So the best kind of book one, it really sets things up, gets you invested, and the rest of the story, it can go in so many directions. I just can't even imagine what he's planning for the other, or what he's planned and written for the other books. So I can't wait. This continues to be on my priority list. I'm going to try to get to the rest of the series as soon as I can. I would urge you guys to read this if you like these kind of books. I would also urge you guys and implore you to subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever. If you like these kind of videos, support the channel. It's free to do so. Hit the bell notification so you can get notified if I post new reviews, new videos, whatever. That is it for now, guys. I appreciate the time, and I will catch you all soon on the next video.